Hey, how's it going? So, on the last video I told you I was going to talk to you about Paul McCartney's classical work on this video. And so here we are. And when Paul first announced that he was working with Carl Davis and he was working on an oratorio, I think I first heard the announcement in '90. I was totally excited. I could not wait to hear it. After all, Paul was the Beatle that was into classical music. Not just, he was into the avant-garde stuff, really, at the time. George Martin was trying to get him into the traditional stuff, like, or not even traditional, just some of the British composers like Ray Vaughan Williams and Elgar. But anyways, Paul was into Stockhausen, he was into John Cage, he was going to concerts, so I was excited when I heard that he was going to do a classical piece, thinking that some of that would be in there. And myself, I'm passionate about classical music. I listen to pieces by Mozart, who's one of my heroes, as well as the avant-garde out there stuff by Philip Glass. Actually, he's not considered so much out there anymore, but Penderecki is, and so is Ligeti. But in fact, my dream job would be to would be a classical music announcer. That's what my dream job would be. I could totally see myself doing it, because as a classical music announcer on the radio, you don't have to be a typical DJ, but like, hey, coming up at 5 o'clock, we got the commercial-free hour. You don't have to do that. You're basically calm, collected, and that was Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man. We heard Leonard Bernstein conducting the New York Philharmonic Orchestra here on WFMT in Chicago, or here on KBOC in Phoenix. Right now we have a piece coming up by Shostakovich. It was known as his Jazz Suite No. 2, but in recent years it has been discovered that it's been his Suite for Promenade Orchestra. There you go. That would be my dream job. Anyways, I was excited when Paul did this, and when Liverpool Oratorio came out, I excitedly watched it on PBS when they had shown the premiere. He had some heavy hitters. He had Jerry Hadley, he had Kirti Kanawa, and heavy hitters on this thing, the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So I bought the CD when it came out, too. This is my original that I bought around that time. And I tried to listen to it, actually, just as a piece on its own. And there's a lot of great things in here. I'm not going to diss this. I'm not one to diss rockers trying to do classical music. After all, Frank Zappa was originally a classical composer. Paul, he wasn't. But he got into it, and there's a lot of brilliant melodies on here. The story is okay, and I think it sometimes gets bogged down in the story elements. But it is an oratorio, which is about... An oratorio is kind of like an opera, except it's not staged. It's basically done in concert setting, and it's of sacred text, like Handel's Messiah is an oratorio. And it's got a lot of great moments on here. When I played it recently, though, I was like, it needed to be edited a bit. It's 90 minutes long, and I think it could have been compacted a bit. But other than that, Liverpool Oratorio, I think, is a brilliant move into classical music for Paul. And here he had Carl Davis. So again, Paul working with a collaborator. Basically, supposedly Carl just went and wrote down what Paul was humming or what he played on the piano, and he did the rest. He did the orchestrating. He wrote it down into musical notes, because Paul can't write music. And that's a simple fact. But now, the next one he did after that, and again, Paul doing classical music, it's Paul McCartney. I want to hear what he's going to do. Standing Stone. 4 movements. Paul did admit that he's not well developed or well versed to do a theme and carry it through four movements. Now, in the case of Mozart, he didn't normally carry a theme through four movements. If you listen to his famous Jupiter Symphony, each movement could pretty much stand on its own. But why would you want to hear it like that anyways? Now, on the other hand, one of my favorite pieces by Dvorak, his Symphony No. 9 from the New World, or New World Symphony, 39 minutes long for four movements. This is 76 minutes and 45 seconds for four movements. And each of the four movements has sub-movements, like the first movement has 3 parts. The second movement has 5 parts. So there's sub-movements within each movement, which may seem confusing, but Paul, what he did was compose a narrative poem. In his eyes, an epic poem. So he could write the music to it. And in his liner notes, some beautiful photos in the booklet here by Linda. In the liner notes, he did say he wants the music to stand on its own, and where people don't have to read the poem. But when I listen to the music, I feel like I need to read the poem, and the poem is pretty much a difficult read. It's supposed to be about early life, early man, and early Celtic man, more specifically. I don't know if I even have a right to judge the whole thing, because I've yet to make it beyond the second movement. And that was quite a feat. I'm not saying the music is difficult to listen to. Like I said, I've listened to a lot of difficult pieces of music. John Adams composed a brilliant piece for the victims of 9/11 that was premiered by the New York Philharmonic, conducted by Lorne Mazzal, on the anniversary of 9/11, called On the Transmigration of the Souls. And that is really some music to really pay attention to. But this, honestly, seems like it's music from a nature documentary. Like, you could imagine David Attenborough, and when the rainstorms hit, the kangaroos huddle under a tree. You know, something like that. But you need the visual element in front of you. It sounds like the music is background music. And if it's scored to a movie or a documentary, and you need the visual element to go along with the music, then it's bad score. John Williams, you could listen to his scores as separate pieces of music, and they totally work. They are brilliant. Don't get me wrong, I love E.T. and I love Steven Spielberg, but the score to E.T. can work on its own, and you can be just as moved by listening to the music. It may recall your favorite scene from the film. So that is a big drawback on this. And I think a lot of it, again, has to do with the editing. I think a lot of it has to do with the editing. 76 minutes for a symphonic piece. I think a lot of it was done so he could have it expand throughout the entire length of a CD, which can carry 80 minutes of music on a CD. So I think maybe he needed to edit this thing down to 39 minutes. Again, operas can be over an hour and a half to 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. Gounod's Faust is a prime example of that. But this did not have to be 76 minutes long. It could have been 40 minutes. Type 40 minutes for 4 movements, and that be it. I think a lot of it had to do with padding for a CD, even though this was going to be performed live. And again, it was commissioned by the London Symphony Orchestra. Some good stuff in here, but you have to wade through some long, dull moments before you get to some of the good stuff. And so it's like I don't, and that was just me listening to the first 2 movements. I haven't gotten to movement 3 and movement 4 yet. Maybe I will challenge myself to do that soon, and I'll get back to you on the whole piece. Now, I don't have working classical because I was afraid to get working classical, so I don't know. Do I need to correct that? Somebody tell me, should I get working classical? Now, for me, 2006, Ecce Cormeum, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, which means Behold My Heart. Another oratorio. And this is 56 minutes and 53 seconds. This is a brilliant, passionate work. A lot of it was done in the wake of Linda's death. So, musically, spiritually, the text, it's really an emotional piece. And just as a whole, which is the way you're supposed to be listening to symphonic pieces, it works from beginning to end as a concert piece. As an oratorio, I can't say enough about this. This was the classical piece that I wanted him to do all along, and I got it. And this stands with some of the best works ever done. So I recommend this one totally. Ocean's Kingdom, I also kind of liked his ballet that he did. I think I would have loved to have seen the ballet more, though. Again, needing that visual element, but then again, there's a lot of good in this here that could stand on its own outside of the ballet. So, again, he's worked with producer John Fraser on all of these. But again, I think it's a matter of Paul always needing to have a collaborator there, and I don't know how John Fraser is as far as a producer of his classical pieces. Probably just gets the sound right. I don't know, but I would love to see what Paul can do with an opera. Surprisingly, he's never done this on his solo albums. Done a true concept album. Yes, one could say Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles. Yes, one could say Band on the Run. And that's my alarm, so let me wrap it up. But he's never done that totally on any of his albums, carry a narrative thread through. I would like to see him do something like this in a pop rock setting. But I would love to see him classical with an opera. I think with an opera setting, because the ballet was good, that is musical theater ballet. With an operatic setting, I would love to hear it. I mean, Liverpool Oratorio had a plot to it. That worked. I think some of the things just need to be concise more, but if he had a musical theater setting, he could take that expansive time, which an opera allows you to. So, as far as Paul's classical music, some of it can be hit and miss. I like aspects of Liverpool Oratorio. Can't get through Standing Stone. Love Ecce Cormeum. And Ocean's Kingdom has brilliant parts in it that is worth owning. So, use your discretion in buying Paul's classical pieces, but I think on something like Standing Stone, he needed to have it concise and maybe use a collaborator on it. But that's it. That's my take on Paul's classical pieces, and I'll see you on the next one. End scene.